Okay, we are excited to talk about the SEVIS transfer process today. My name is Grace Fuller. I use she, her pronouns. I serve as the manager of international experience and engagement here at the International Services and Engagement Office. And I'm joined by my colleague, Jessica, who I'll invite to introduce herself.
Yes, good morning, everyone, or good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Jessica Boyle. I use preferred pronouns she, her, hers, and I am an international student advisor here in the International Services and Engagement Office. Welcome.
Okay. So how we'll spend our time together today, if you've joined our other webinars, we are going to go over those first step checklists. They are just so important to your journey, so we want to make sure to highlight them each time. Then we'll spend the majority of today really talking about how to transfer your SEVIS record. This will be for students who are currently enrolled in an institution, as well as for students who are on OPT. So we'll go through both scenarios and steps to take in either one. We'll end with upcoming webinars and additional resources, and as always, have time dedicated for open question and answer. So some reminders, you are in listen only mode, so you can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear you. So the main way we'll interact together today is through that Q&A feature. Should you have any questions that can't get answered today, you are always welcome to reach out to us via icontact.ucsd.edu. And finally, we are recording, so you'll be able to view this webinar recording as well as others at inewstudentwebinars.ucsd.edu. We do ask for 1 week of turnaround time as our team edits the video and posts it on our YouTube channel, but this is also the same website that you can go to sign up for upcoming webinars. Here's just a friendly reminder of what that Zoom Q&A feature might look like on your menu bar and some first steps. So for all of our graduate students on the call, please log into your graduate applicant portal and make sure to 1, accept that offer of admission, very important, and 2, fill out the statement of legal residence form if it is listed. Really, any documents under those pending admission documents should be some of the first things that you address as you begin your journey and prepare for your time at UC San Diego. And should any questions arise, you can always contact gradadmissions@ucsd.edu. For our undergraduate students, you will also log into that applicant portal, but that link will be slightly different for undergrads. So you'll go to beatriton.ucsd.edu/account, and you will also complete your enrollment checklist, which will likely 1, consist of accepting your offer of admission, and then 2, completing the California residency for tuition purposes questionnaire. Please note that once you accept your offer of admission, that will kind of activate some of these next steps. So 2 to 3 days later, you will then receive an email asking you to create your Triton Link Active Directory and your Duo accounts. This will also kind of trigger the Active Directory with the UC San Diego PID and email, which is how you can do many of the other steps, including requesting your visa documents. So inewstudent.ucsd.edu is a great resource we hope that you can refer back to throughout this pre-arrival season. And we have it, this homepage on the left-hand side here is listed for education level. And then once you select that, it'll be broken down into steps of what to do to request your visa, your immigration documents, to prepare for your arrival, and then finally upon arrival. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jessica to talk about transferring your SEVIS record.
Thank you, Grace. All right, so as we get started, I do want to let you know that this presentation has a lot of information in it. I would encourage you to listen actively. We are going to try and reserve time at the end for question and answer, but for now, pay attention to what's on the screen. And as a reminder, if you're watching, as you're watching this, you feel like this is a bit of an information onslaught, remember that we are recording this session. We'll have it posted online in about a week for you to refer back to. So let's get started by first understanding what is a SEVIS transfer. An F1 student is or may be eligible to transfer their F1 record between student and exchange visitor program certified schools. And this just means institutions or schools in the US who are able to host F1 international students. The SEVIS transfer process is a way to electronically move an F1 student record, which is also called a SEVIS record, from one school to another, while making sure that you as the student retain or keep the same SEVIS ID number that is at the top of your Form I-20. The SEVIS transfer process does a couple of things. Number one, it sets a date called the SEVIS release date, which on that date, access to your student record is going to transfer from your current school to your new school. This basically means that your current school on a specific date will transfer the responsibility of maintaining your F1 student record to UC San Diego. The SEVIS transfer process also ensures that your current SEVIS ID number, as I already mentioned, which is that long number at the top of your Form I-20, it starts with an N00. It ensures that number is going to remain the same, even though you will be obtaining a new Form I-20 from UC San Diego. Your SEVIS ID number, your current SEVIS ID number will show at the top of that new I-20. And then, of course, last but not least, it also helps ensure that our institution, UC San Diego, is now going to be responsible for updating your SEVIS record and advising you on how to maintain your F1 status. So what does the SEVIS transfer process actually look like? It has 4 steps to it, at least is how we break it down here at UC San Diego, and we are going to walk through each of these steps in this presentation. Step 1 is to determine whether you are eligible for SEVIS transfer. We're going to talk about how you do that. Step 2 is to request the SEVIS transfer of your current institution or from your current institution, and this will include choosing your SEVIS release date. Step 3 is to then request your new Form I-20 from UC San Diego. And step 4 is to receive your new Form I-20 from UC San Diego and complete SEVIS check-in with our office in order to actually finish the SEVIS transfer process. So let's take a look at step 1. So not everyone that is starting their program in summer or fall 2024 is eligible for a SEVIS transfer. Even if you are currently in the US now and or if you're maintaining your current SEVIS record and F1 status, there are 3 eligibility criteria that you will need to meet in order to be eligible for SEVIS transfer. Number 1 is you must be maintaining your current active F1 status. This means that you must be following all the rules and requirements with your current school and maintaining your F1 enrollment or OPT in accord with US government regulations. So in other words, you do need to be a current F1 student and maintaining valid F1 status. If by any chance you are listening to this webinar and you do not currently have F1 status, maybe you are outside the US, this webinar is probably not for you. Number 2 is that your last date of enrollment or your last date of OPT must be within 5 months of the start of your classes here at UC San Diego. We're going to do some demonstrations in just a moment so that you can better understand this timeline and apply it to your own situation. But essentially, your start date here at UC San Diego cannot be more than 5 months away from your last date of enrollment or OPT with your prior institution. And then third, this last point is with regards to the timing of the actual transfer of your SEVIS record. Your SEVIS record must be released to UC San Diego before the end of your respective grace period. For F1 students, you have a 60-day grace period following completion of your enrollment or OPT. So you must request that your current school release your SEVIS record to UC San Diego before the end of your 60-day grace period. So these are the 3 eligibility criteria a student needs to meet in order to be able to do the SEVIS transfer process. So some common questions we get around these criteria is, where do I find my program end date? How do I know what that is? How do I know when my grace period starts and ends? In other words, how do I figure out my deadline to transfer, right? So let's talk about that. So as I mentioned, in order to be eligible for transfer, you first need to determine or make sure that the start of your classes here at UC San Diego is within 5 months of your last date of enrollment at your current institution or your last date of authorized OPT. Your program end date, therefore, with your current school is going to be based on one of those 2 things. It's either going to be the last day of enrollment at your current institution Or if you are on OPT or planning to do OPT this summer before you transfer, it will be the last day of your authorized OPT. If you are currently enrolled and you will not be undertaking OPT prior to starting your new program at UC San Diego, you can look on your current Form I-20 for your program end date. However, it's very important to note that sometimes the program end date that is on your Form I-20 may not actually be your real program end date, meaning your actual last day of enrollment, the day that you have completed your degree requirements. So we would strongly encourage you to check with your current international student office to verify what is your actual program end date, because what's showing on your Form I-20 may be an estimate. You will need to make sure that your actual last day of enrollment, your actual program end date, is within 5 months of your start of classes here at UC San Diego. And that actual program end date, when you are actually completing your enrollment at your current school, is what will determine the start of your 60-day grace period. In other words, the time frame within which you must transfer your SEVIS record. If you are currently on post-completion OPT or the STEM OPT extension, or if maybe you're graduating maybe this month right now, but you're planning to do OPT over the summer before you transfer to UC San Diego, instead of referencing your last date of enrollment as your program end date, you will use the last date of your authorized OPT as your program end date for the purpose of the SEVIS transfer process. You can reference the card expires date on your current EAD card to see when your last date of authorized OPT is. And so again, you'll need to make sure that that last date of authorized OPT is within 5 months of your start of classes here at UC San Diego. And that last date of authorized OPT is what will determine your 60-day grace period. Again, in other words, the time frame within which you must transfer your SEVIS record. Now that we've discussed how to locate your program end date, let's talk about the 60-day grace period, because you heard me mention this a couple times now, right? So remember that the start and end of your grace period is determined by your actual program end date. In the 60 days following either your last day of enrollment or your last day of authorized OPT, you must take action on your SEVIS record. The 60-day grace period is essentially a buffer period of time following the completion of your F1 program, whether that's your enrollment or your OPT, within which an F1 student needs to take some sort of action. Those actions could be working in the US via OPT if you are just finishing your enrollment, starting a new program at their current school, starting a new program at a new school, pursuing a change of status to a different visa category, or if the student takes none of these actions, then the student has to depart the US by the end of their 60-day grace period. So in this presentation, we are talking about the action of starting a new program at a new school. That is what the SEVIS transfer process is for. And to be eligible for SEVIS transfer, your SEVIS record must be released to UC San Diego before the end of your 60-day grace period following your last day of enrollment or your last day of authorized OPT. So I want to look at some visual examples to help you understand this time frame. You can see that in this example, the student is currently enrolled, right? Enrolled at current school. They are not on OPT. Their program end date, therefore, is their last day of enrollment at their current school. Immediately following their last day of enrollment, this student will enter their 60-day grace period. If the student does not take any action within that 60-day grace period, such as transferring their SEVIS record or applying for OPT, etc., their SEVIS record will complete and their F1 status will automatically end. Once that happens, the student is no longer eligible for transfer. So as a reminder, this 60-day grace period is the window you have to take some kind of action before your F1 status completes. So likewise, here's an example where the student's currently on authorized OPT. Their OPT end date is their last date of authorized OPT as it's shown on their EAD card. Immediately following their last day of authorized OPT, the student is going to enter their 60-day grace period. And again, if the student does not take action to extend their F1 status by starting a new program, For example, transferring their SEVIS record, then their SEVIS record will automatically complete and their F1 status will automatically end at the end of that 60-day grace period. And again, once the F1 status completes, the student is no longer eligible for transfer. All right, so we've looked at step one. Those are the things you need to check on to determine if you're eligible for a SEVIS transfer. Is your F1 status in good standing? Meaning, are you an active current F1 student? Are you completing enrollment or OPT within 5 months of your start of classes here at UC San Diego? And can you ensure that your current institution can transfer or release your SEVIS records to UC San Diego before the end of your 60-day grace period? All right, so let's move on to step two, which is how to actually initiate that transfer process. So once you have determined that you are eligible for SEVIS transfer, you're going to need to request that your current school transfer your SEVIS record, and you'll need to choose a date before the end of your grace period on which you would like your school to release your SEVIS record to UC San Diego. I want to really stress that the SEVIS transfer process is going to require that you work directly with your current institution. And it is really important to know that this process is not automatic. Your current school doesn't know what your plans are after graduation. You have to communicate to them what you would like to do as far as your F1 record is concerned. So you as the student are required to initiate this process and to make sure that the transfer gets completed, which we're going to talk about in step 4. But in this step 2, we're going to focus on what you need to do to initiate this process. So you'll need to talk to your current institution, talk to your DSO, which is your International Student Advisor or an advisor at your International Student Office, and ask them, how do I transfer my SEVIS record? What do I need to submit to you in order for you to release my SEVIS record to UC San Diego? Most schools require you as the student to fill out a form of some kind in order to request a SEVIS transfer, and your current International Student Office will be able to advise you on what that process looks like. When you talk to them about this, it's also a good idea to double check your SEVIS transfer eligibility with them, right? So you hopefully should have already done the work, what we just discussed in step 1, to determine, am I eligible for SEVIS transfer? But this is a great time to then talk to your International Student Office and have them confirm that yes, your F1 record is in good standing. Your program end date, the end of your enrollment or OPT, what that date is, so that you can then calculate, okay, is that date going to be within 5 months of my start of classes at UC San Diego? And again, of course, find out from them, what do you actually need to submit in order for them to be able to transfer your SEVIS record within your 60-day grace period. When you request your SEVIS transfer, you're going to need to tell your current institution what date, specific day, you would like them to release your SEVIS record to UC San Diego. If you remember from earlier, I mentioned that your SEVIS release date is the specific day that your current school will electronically transfer access to your SEVIS record to UC San Diego. It is your responsibility to choose your SEVIS release date. Your current International Student Office might be able to advise you on how to go about choosing that date, but ultimately it's going to be your decision what day you ask them to transfer your SEVIS record. What's important to remember when you are choosing your SEVIS release date is that it has to be a date before the end of your 60-day grace period. Because remember, if your 60-day grace period ends, then your F1 status has ended and you are no longer eligible for transfer. So if you're currently enrolled, your SEVIS release date must be a date within your 60-day grace period. If you're currently on OPT, your SEVIS release date must be a date either within your 60-day grace period or a date during your authorized OPT if that release date can meet the 5-month rule. We're going to take a look at each of these 3 scenarios so that you can understand the timeline and apply it to your situation. So let's do that. All right. So in this first example of how to choose your SEVIS release date, this is a student who is currently enrolled at their current school. They're not on OPT. You can see that their program end date is their last day of enrollment, right? And following their last day of enrollment is their 60-day grace period. And later this fall, they are looking forward to starting their classes here at UC San Diego, starting their new program. This student has already done the work to determine that they are eligible for SEVIS transfer. They know that their F1 record is currently in good standing, and they know that their last day of enrollment at their current school is less than 5 months out from the start of their classes here at UC San Diego. So this student is ready to request that their current institution transfer their SEVIS record. In order to request this, the student needs to tell their current institution what specific date they want their SEVIS record released to UC San Diego. The student can choose any specific date within their 60-day grace period as their SEVIS release date. So in other words, they must choose a date after their last day of enrollment, but before the end of their grace period. Again, remember that if your grace period ends and you haven't taken any action, your F1 record automatically completes and you are no longer eligible for transfer. So this student is going to choose a specific SEVIS release date within their grace period, and they will report this date to their current institution following whatever that school's process is for requesting a SEVIS transfer. Once you decide on a SEVIS release date and follow your current school's process to request that they transfer your SEVIS record, your current school will release your SEVIS record to UC San Diego on the date that you've chosen. And from that day that your SEVIS record is transferred, past the end of your grace period and until you begin your program here at UC San Diego, you can remain in the United States. You do not have to depart the US during this time. I'm going to say that again. As long as you meet the SEVIS transfer eligibility requirements and your SEVIS record gets released within your 60-day grace period, you can remain in the US and wait for the start of your new program here at UC San Diego. All right, so let's look at the same example for those of you who might be on OPT. The process is very similar if you will soon be ending your post-completion OPT or your STEM OPT extension. As you can see in this new example now, this student is currently on their approved OPT. They have identified their program end date as their last day of authorized OPT, as shown on their EAD card. And they've identified their grace period, the 60 days immediately following their last day of OPT. And they've confirmed that their last day of authorized OPT and the start date of their classes here at UC San Diego are less than 5 months apart, right? So this student knows that they are eligible for transfer. Just as in the prior example, this student is going to request a specific SEVIS release date that is within their 60-day grace period. And in the time between their SEVIS release date and the start of their new program here at UC San Diego, they can stay in the US. But I want to call out, it's really important to note that during this period after the end of your OPT and your SEVIS release date, while you are waiting for your new program to start, you cannot continue your OPT employment because your OPT has ended, right? Your OPT ended as of the end date that was printed on your EAD card. So I'm going to say that one more time. During the period while you're waiting for your new program to start, you can remain in the US, but you cannot continue your OPT employment because your OPT has ended. Okay. Now there's a third scenario that some of you may be in, which is what if your period of authorized OPT goes past your start date here at UC San Diego? You can see that's what we have showing here in this example, right? This student is on approved OPT. However, they look at their EAD card and they see that their last day of authorized OPT is after the start of their UC San Diego classes. Those of you who have an OPT authorization period that looks like this will need to end your OPT a bit early because you will need to transfer your SEVIS record to UC San Diego in advance of your new program starting. This means that you will need to choose a SEVIS release date that is actually during your period of authorized OPT. The 5-month rule still applies in this case. So what I mean by that is that the SEVIS release date you choose must be less than 5 months away from the start of classes here at UC San Diego. As I just mentioned, this SEVIS release date will take place during your period of authorized OPT. If you are transferring your SEVIS record during your period of authorized OPT, know that your OPT will end on your SEVIS release date. So now it's going to look like this. In this case, your last day of authorized OPT becomes the date of your SEVIS transfer. So again, super important, and I know I'm repeating a lot, but if this is the timeline situation you are in, it's important to understand that on your SEVIS release date, your OPT will end due to your SEVIS transfer. So if you select a SEVIS release date during your OPT period, your OPT will end on that release date. So you'll want to think carefully to make sure not only are you choosing a SEVIS release date that is still within 5 months of the start of your classes here at UC San Diego, but also that that release date accommodates when you are wanting to end the job that you are working for OPT. As in the other two scenarios, in the time between your SEVIS release date and the start of your new program here at UC San Diego, you can stay in the US, but you may not continue your OPT employment because your OPT will have ended with your SEVIS release date. All right. So we looked at step 2. I know this has been a lot of information. We're going to move on to step 3, and the next 2 steps have slightly less information. So let's keep moving on. Step 3 is after you've chosen your SEVIS release date and you've followed your current institution's process for requesting that SEVIS transfer. Now it's time to request your new Form I-20 from UC San Diego. To request your new Form I-20, you'll need to visit our online international student services platform, which is called iPortal. You can access it by going to iportal.ucsd.edu. In iPortal, you will need to submit one of the following new admit service forms. If your UC San Diego program begins in the fall term, you'll submit the new admit I-20 or DS 2019 request. If your UC San Diego program begins in the summer, you'll need to submit the new admit I-20 or DS 2019 summer start program request. Sometimes we get the question, how do I know if I'm in a program that starts in the summer or fall? Most of the programs at UC San Diego begin with the fall term. We have a handful of predominantly graduate programs that start in the summer. If you have been admitted to a program that requires you to begin in the summer, you will have received a notice from your department that your program starts in the summer. So check your admission letter, watch your email. If you're still not sure, you can check in with your academic department to have them confirm when your classes actually start. Regardless of which one of these new admit forms you fill out, the form is going to ask you a series of questions to collect your SEVIS transfer information. So I want to show you what those will look like. So as part of the new admit form, it's going to ask you to indicate which of the following scenarios best describes your current enrollment or work authorization in the US. And if you have determined that you're eligible for SEVIS transfer, then you'll want to select this option that says, I am currently enrolled at a US institution or on US work authorization, and the last day of my enrollment or pending approved OPT is less than 5 months away from my program start date at UC San Diego, right? You're then going to be asked if you plan on transferring your SEVIS record, and obviously, if you are, then you should respond yes. You're then going to be asked to provide the name of the school, university that currently holds your SEVIS record, the contact information for your international student advisor, and your current SEVIS ID number. Again, your SEVIS ID number is the number at the top of your Form I-20 that starts with N00. And then last but not least, you'll tell us what your SEVIS release date is, and that will let us know when we can expect to receive your SEVIS record. In iPortal, make sure that once you have answered all the questions in the new admit form, that you both save it and submit it. After you've completed it, the form will automatically save. You will then need to navigate back to the menu at the top of iPortal, click on Requests, find your new admit request, upload the required supporting documents, and then submit the new admit request. So that's what I mean by make sure you have both saved and submitted your new admit request. Once you've submitted your new admit request and your SEVIS release date has passed, we will process your new Form I-20 within 15 business days. So again, you'll receive your new UC San Diego Form I-20 within 15 business days of your SEVIS release date or your iPortal request submission, whichever is later. We have to have both in order to process your I-20. We have to have received your SEVIS record from your new school, right? And you also need to have submitted your Form I-20 request to us. All right, last step. So now that you've submitted your new admit I-20 request in iPortal, the last step is going to be to complete the SEVIS transfer process. When you receive your new Form I-20, it's going to show your SEVIS record as being in transfer pending status. This means that your SEVIS transfer has been initiated, but it cannot be completed until you have met certain enrollment requirements and submitted a check-in form following your program start date. So I want to quickly talk through what that all entails. So once you receive your transfer pending Form I-20, kind of in the in-between period, right before your program starts, here's some things that you can do and should do. When you get that transfer pending I-20, please review it to make sure all of the information is showing correctly. Anytime you receive an I-20 from any school, ours included, you should quickly read through it to make sure everything is showing correctly. In particular, with your transfer pending Form I-20, make sure that the SEVIS ID number showing at the top matches the SEVIS ID number that was on your previous I-20 from your prior school. That's how you're going to know that our office successfully received your transferred SEVIS record. You may also then go ahead and enroll in your classes. So check with your college or your academic department about how to enroll and which courses you should choose. You are expected to enroll in person at full-time status by the program start date listed on your Form I-20. At UC San Diego, if you don't already know, full-time status is 12 units during the academic school year, which is the fall, winter, and spring quarters. Full-time status during the summer terms is 6 units per summer session term. So the summer quarter at UC San Diego has 2 summer sessions in it. Pardon me, if you are in a program that requires you to start during the summer term, or if you have chosen to start your program in the summer and will then be enrolling in the summer and your Form I-20 has a summer program start date, you have to enroll full-time in the summer, and that means 6 units every summer session term. You are required to report any changes to our office if you need information on your I-20 changed. In iPortal, there is a new admit amendment form, and that is what you will submit to request any changes to your Form I-20. So during this transfer pending period, you want to make sure you keep your Form I-20 up to date. During this time, you may also apply for on-campus employment. So if you don't want to sit around during the summer, you can stay busy by finding an on-campus job here at UC San Diego. You are not permitted to work off campus during the transfer period. However, you may be eligible to work on campus. And if that's something you are interested in, we have great resources through our Career Center who can help you identify on-campus positions that may be of interest to you. During the transfer pending period, you can travel internationally and re-enter the US using your new transfer pending I-20. Sometimes a question we get from SEVIS transfer students is, can I travel in between schools? You can travel internationally between ending your program at your previous school and starting at UC San Diego, but if you leave the United States, in order to come back, you will have needed to receive your new UC San Diego Form I-20. You'll need to show that you have continuing intention now to enroll at a new school, right? So once you receive your transfer pending I-20, you can travel internationally and return to the US. And that includes using that new transfer pending I-20 to renew or apply for a new F1 visa if that is something that you need to do. All right, we're almost to the end. Last but not least, as I mentioned, you are responsible for making sure that you complete the SEVIS transfer process. The SEVIS transfer process is not complete until your program start date has arrived that will be listed on your Form I-20, and you have submitted your check-in form to our office in iPortal. In iPortal, there's a service form called Check-in for I-20 activation. You must submit this form within 10 days of your UC San Diego program start date, so that we can activate your SEVIS record. Once we receive your check-in form, we're going to activate your SEVIS record for you, and then your SEVIS transfer process will be considered complete, and you will have successfully transferred your SEVIS record to UC San Diego. All right. So we've gone through all 4 steps now. I know it's a lot of information. I'm going to turn this webinar over to Grace for some final reminders, and then we'll move into a time of Q&A. If you still have questions at this point, now is a great time to drop them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen.
All right, thank you, Jessica. So just some ways that you can already start to get involved with our UC San Diego Triton community. We have our iPrograms. So these are signature programs that come out of our office that are recurring throughout the academic year. If you're interested in learning more about these programs, we invite you to head to iprograms.ucsd.edu and check them out. 2 programs that I specifically want to call attention to. One is for our undergraduate students, and that is GAP, the Global Ambassador Program. This is a summer-long peer mentorship program that matches incoming international undergraduate students with current UC San Diego undergraduate students. So you'll communicate typically virtually all summer long, and then we'll have a GAP mixer come fall where you all can meet each other. The counterpart to GAP for our graduate students is our Grad Pals program. So Grad Pals similarly is a summer-long peer mentorship program where we match incoming international graduate students with current UC San Diego graduate students. So if you are interested in signing up for GAP, you can go ahead and scan the QR code listed on the screen and begin that process. And then finally, our iEvents calendar is a live calendar that features all events with global engagement and internationalization as its focus. This features events coming both from our office as well as offices around campus, and then also includes events from our student organizations. So it's a great way to have a preview of what's going on campus. And then we hope you'll follow us on social media. So we're very active. I think specifically I would highlight on our Instagram, so at istudents.ucsd.edu, and we'd love to connect with you there. So some important deadlines and reminders. There are a few things that you can start doing right now as you prepare for your time at UC San Diego. One of which is if you're interested in living on campus, you can apply for on-campus housing. We did have a previous webinar feature housing, both on campus, off campus, a lot of things, but it does go into detail specifically about the process for on-campus housing. So invite you to watch that pre-arrival webinar as well as go to the website for more information. Another thing that you can start doing is requesting your visa documents via the iPortal. We do want to specifically highlight that if your program does begin in the summer, so June, July, or August, please do request your visa documents by May 1st. So that's an important deadline that we want to share with you all. Then July 10th is the deadline to submit all health immunization requirements. So we did also have a webinar about this as well. And you can learn more by also going to Student Health. And then finally in September is when a lot of exciting things happen. We're excited to welcome you. It's also tuition and move-in and check-in, but we'll have lots of orientations as well and lots of orientation activities. Finally, we have just a couple left in terms of our pre-arrival webinars. So next week on May 7th, we are going to feature student life and getting involved. This is going to be specifically for our undergraduate students. And then on May 9th, we'll focus on campus safety, and we invite both graduate students and undergraduate students to join us for this webinar. So you can sign up for this webinar at inewstudentwebinars.ucsd.edu. All right, so I know that we've had a few good questions already come through the Q&A. And I'll hand it over to Jessica to see where you would like to begin.
Yeah, thanks, Grace. So I think many of these questions we did answer in the presentation, and looking at the timestamps, I love to see you all are thinking in line or right ahead of us where we were going. I think hopefully many of these questions have been answered. One that I do want to address is the SEVIS transfer process is specifically for students that are currently in F1 status and moving their F1 status to a new school. So if you are in another visa category, like the H-1B, for example, the SEVIS transfer process does not apply to you. I'm so sorry. That would be, if the H-1B is a different visa category, and that would be changing status to an F1 category if you are planning to do that. So the SEVIS transfer process would be if you're currently on an F1 student visa and you're going to stay on the F1 student visa just now at a new school, UC San Diego. There's another, I think if I'm understanding these questions here, as a reminder, when you're dropping questions in the Q&A, if you can be as specific as possible with what you're answering, that will help us answer the question, hopefully with the answer you're looking for, or with clarity at least. So I think the question is asking, can I transfer my SEVIS record before my enrollment at my current school ends? This is a question you need to ask your current school. Most schools will not let you transfer your SEVIS record until you have actually completed your enrollment, because the school where you are enrolled needs to retain access to your SEVIS record because they are responsible for advising you with regards to your F1 status. Remember that the SEVIS transfer means that your current school loses access to your F1 record and UC San Diego gains access to your record, your SEVIS record, on your SEVIS release date. So if you are still enrolling with your previous or current school, they are going to typically want to retain access to your SEVIS record. So that's something you need to talk to them about. And let's see. So we had a question, if, am I eligible for SEVIS transfer if my new program is going to start before my OPT ends? We did answer that in the presentation. Yes, just remember that in that case, you will need to end your OPT early so that you can facilitate the SEVIS transfer process. So you need to choose the SEVIS release date that is within 5 months of your start date of classes here at UC San Diego, and just know that your OPT will end on your SEVIS release date. So as you're choosing that date, make sure it meets the 5-month rule and make sure you've taken into account how long you're wanting to work up until the start of your program. Your program at UC San Diego. And a question about travel during the transfer pending period. Hopefully this question got answered, but just to reiterate, yes, you are able to leave the United States in between ending your previous program at your previous school and starting at UC San Diego. But remember that in order to come back to the US, you will need to have your new transfer pending UC San Diego Form I-20. That is how Customs is going to know that you are extending or maintaining your F1 status now by starting a program at a new school, right? So we have a couple questions about timing your SEVIS release date with the start of your classes. I'm going to try and answer, we've got 2 questions like this. So we can issue the Form I-20 up until the business day before your program start date here at UC San Diego. And we work very hard for students who in particular may be on OPT and want to be able to work as long as possible before needing to transfer their SEVIS record. We work very hard to make sure that if you are asking for a release date of your SEVIS record that is very close to the start of your UC San Diego classes, that we are able to accommodate that. What is important in the timing of your SEVIS transfer is that you make sure your current institution can set that release date within your 60-day grace period. The SEVIS transfer process does allow schools to schedule a release date out in the future. If you miss that 60-day grace period because you are trying to work as long as possible, remember that if your 60-day grace period ends, your F1 record completes, it is no longer eligible for transfer. So talk to your current school They will need to help you understand based on the specific dates of your enrollment ending or OPT ending, or if you're going to be ending your OPT for the SEVIS transfer process. You want to communicate with them sooner rather than later so that you make sure you've done your part to remain eligible for SEVIS transfer. They can advise you on the nuances of figuring out, okay, well then how do you go about choosing that SEVIS release date, and make sure that they set you up for that so that you're eligible for SEVIS transfer. There's a question about if I transfer my SEVIS record, will I need to go to the embassy or I won't need to do that anymore? So the SEVIS transfer process is to move your SEVIS record, your Form I-20 record, from one school to another. The reason a student goes to a US embassy is to get an F1 visa stamp. The F1 visa stamp is what you need to enter the United States. You can think of your, a visa stamp is like a key. It gets you into a house, right? If you need to get into your house and you're on the outside of your house, you need a key to get into your house. But once you are inside your house, that key doesn't serve much purpose because you made it inside, right? The visa stamp functions much the same way. So when you are outside the United States, you need a current F1 visa stamp in order to show customs a active Form I-20 and the F1 visa stamp in order to come into the United States. But once you are in the US, the F1 visa stamp actually doesn't prove your status. What proves your status, your F1 status, is your active Form I-20 being updated or up to date. So if you have an F1 visa stamp that is still current, you don't need to go to the embassy to get a new one as part of the SEVIS transfer process. The only reason you would need to go to the embassy would be if you need to get a new F1 visa stamp because you have traveled outside the United States. You need an F1 visa stamp to get back, and the one you have or had previously is now expired. That would be the only reason that you need to go to the embassy again. So a question about traveling. If we're leaving the US during the summer, what's the earliest date for us to receive our new I-20 for entering the US again? So remember that processing time, standard processing time to receive your I-20 is 15 business days from when you have submitted your request in iPortal and your SEVIS release date has passed, because we need both things in order to issue your new I-20. So you will want to time your return to the United States to make sure that you will be receiving your UC San Diego Form I-20 before you come back to the US. And that means that the 15 business day processing time after your iPortal request, as well as your SEVIS release date, need to be able to take place before you return to the US. Let's see. We have a quick question about travel endorsements on the Form I-20. So when we issue I-20s here at UC San Diego, we automatically always put a travel signature on them. So what's important all throughout your program at UC San Diego is just that you check always the most recently issued I-20 you've received from us and make sure that travel signature is within a year old. While you're enrolling in a program of study, the travel signature always has to be within a year old in order for you to use it for travel and reentry. But you typically will not need to request a travel endorsement from us unless the travel signature on your most recently issued I-20 is more than a year old. Someone who has submitted all the documents in iPortal, when can I expect confirmation? Standard review time for iPortal requests and for us to issue the I-20 is 15 business days from when you successfully submitted and completed the request. So that means the 15 business day time starts counting from when you successfully completed that request, meaning we have all the information and documents we need. You can check your iPortal request to see the due date. There's a due date that auto-populates on your iPortal request that is based on that 15 business day processing time. And yes, the SEVIS transfer process is not tied to academic transfer necessarily. So SEVIS transfer process could apply to an F1 student who is currently in high school, who is graduating high school and will be starting their bachelor's degree at UC San Diego because they can move or request to transfer their F1 record from their US high school to now their US university. The SEVIS transfer process could apply to a current F1 student attending community college who is academically transferring to UC San Diego because they are needing to transfer their F1 record from their community college to now their bachelor's four-year institution. The SEVIS transfer process can apply to you if you have recently completed a bachelor's degree or a master's degree at another US college or institution, and you are now starting a new graduate program at UC San Diego. So you are again moving your F1 record from your current four-year institution or master's institution to UC San Diego. So the SEVIS transfer process is not tied to being an academic transfer student. It is tied to, are you completing a program of study, level program of study at one US institution that hosts F1 international students? And assuming you meet the three eligibility criteria, you can then move your F1 record, transfer your F1 record to another US institution that is able to host F1 international students, such as UC San Diego. We had a good question. This is one we get quite a lot. Do I need to get a new visa, or could I still use my old visa with the same SEVIS number to enter the United States? Because US consulates and embassies issue the F1 student visa, this is actually a question that is at their discretion to decide on. I can tell you what we have seen in the past is that as long as you have used your current F1 visa stamp previously to enter the United States, you may continue to use it even if you have a new SEVIS ID number, as long as it has not expired yet. That was what we saw happening during the pandemic. However, anytime you have a question about your F1 visa stamp, is it still okay to use this? Some of the information has changed. I'm not sure. Is it still valid? You should contact the embassy or consulate that issued that visa stamp to have them confirmed. It is ultimately their decision and at their discretion whether or not that visa stamp is still able to be used. And again, I'll just add to that. Customs also gets to decide, right, who they let into the United States. Anytime you travel, it is at the discretion of Customs to assess your documents and make sure that your SEVIS status is verifiable and up to date, and therefore allow you entry into the US. Another question that is much the same. Again, historically, we do see that if your current visa stamp is still current and unexpired, meaning the expiration date is in the future, right? If it has your previous school's name, but the SEVIS ID number is the same as the SEVIS ID number on your UC San Diego I-20, which would be the case if you are able to successfully do the SEVIS transfer process. We don't typically see that pose any issues for re-entry. Typically, we see students are still able to use that visa stamp. Okay, and then two quick questions, I think, to wrap up about the Form I-20. So we do not use the profile information you see in iPortal to issue the Form I-20. We use your passport. So it is okay if you see your lived name showing in iPortal. Your passport, we are required to use your passport to issue the Form I-20. So you should see, and when you get your I-20, please double check, right, that the name information on your Form I-20 should match what is on your passport. And then yes, the Form I-20 is delivered electronically. We in fact do not mail these. When your I-20 has been issued, it will be uploaded to your new admit request in iPortal for you to access. You know, we've got a couple more minutes, so we'll see if any other questions come through.
Thank you so much, Jessica. If this were a Zoom meeting, I would invite everyone to give you a round of applause just for your kind and considerate and just wealth of expertise. So we're so grateful to have Jessica here and answering all these questions. And with that, it does look like there aren't any more questions coming through the Q&A. So we hope that you'll join us for our last two webinars next week. As a reminder, on Tuesday, we'll feature student life for our undergraduate students, and on Thursday, we'll feature campus safety. And then we'll transition into iTriton. That will begin in June, and you'll have the ability to complete iTriton over June, July, and August, and we'll welcome you to campus in September. So thank you and have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care.